Hello.
That was a sort of hello.
That's that's a pretty weak beginning. I'm thinking that if we're having
Hi.
a scarf, or whoever has the best scarf contest, you
Well,
definitely
I'm
win.
just very happy that I'm in a shed, and these are not real. It looks very real, but they're not. It's wallpaper.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it looks real. Quite an effort to do these, but yeah. And I'm very glad they painted it the same color as my scarf.
Well, I guess
Very
if
nice of them.
if this was a show, and most shows have introductions and they have context building, they have a lot to start with, and I guess I'm pretty pathetic from my end in terms of the beginnings. Sorry about that.
Well,
Hi,
let's start again. Hi.
hi. Oh man. So how you doing? Oh, wait a second. Wait a second.
Can zoom in from the right. Right.
Ah,
Can I do that?
here we are.
There we go. What a beautiful light. Here we are. I'm going to put the Dow Egberts in there and the hot water from over here.
Okay. Doesn't get
Please,
exciting
please,
than this,
please
folks.
introduce. Carry on.
Okay, well, here we are. This is Captain Sweep
It
of
doesn't get any better. It doesn't get any better
You
than
said
this.
carry on. I'm carrying on, and you're interrupting already.
Carry on.
So, this is Captain Sweep of Planetary Guardians with who are you? Graham Stewart of the Game of Now. I'd like to call you a roving reporter, but I'm always
Yeah.
very to call you anything. I feel like I'm entering onto thin ice. I don't want to name or do anything that sort of interferes with the present moment now. So any identification is usually not called for.
Yeah.
So
I mean, somebody years ago. Yes. Yeah. Whatever you call oneself, it's still dualism, isn't it? I mean, someone called me Graham of Now in the past. That was quite funny. That produced. I don't mind Graham of Now,
mm.
but it doesn't really roll off the tongue. Graham's okay.
so so last time I think we were talking about conscious communication and the impossibility between humans.
Why? Yes,
And I thought we could
there is
probably,
no conscious communication between human beings. Only apparently so. Okay.
you know, you're about to go into storytelling land, right? You're about to start your storytelling, or is that still a ways away?
That's right. That starts a week today.
A week today, okay. And is this the place you're going to be living while you go there?
I'll be here for 1 week in this. Saying it's a shed is a bit unfair. It's a very well appointed shed. It's not got shed implements
Mm,
inside of it as you would
mm,
normally live. So, and then apparently somebody after me is living here for a year.
mm.
Um, but the course itself is maybe 15 minutes across the fields that way. And then I'm going to be in a very nice cottage over the fields behind the horses for 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
You must be getting pretty excited about that, I would think.
Um, there's a curiosity around what's going to happen. There's not. I don't think not excitement as such. I mean, I've done it before, but there's a sense of I want quality experiences right now with surrounded by quality people. Can't guarantee that my colleagues will be, but generally this place attracts very interesting people.
Mm.
Um, from all over the world. So it's an international group, and we'll see. It's part of a. I'm just aware that in the background of my head, of my thinking here, is that I am, having been here alone for a week in this shed, and I've met some people and wandered around a bit, but generally I've been living with me, and I've been doing a lot of radical non-dualism stuff, or watching it, which is bad for your health. It's bad for your sense of identity, because there's nothing happening here. There's nothing we could do. It's just life, whatever is happening, and here we are together, and things will carry on. And there's no real. You can only be doing what you're doing. You're only always going to be doing this, and it will carry on until you stop. And I'm only doing this. It will carry on until I stop. And we've just met. But the whole radical non-dualism stuff is there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing happening. It's just the illusion that this is happening. And then we get involved in all sorts of.
Isn't radical?
It is an amazingly beautiful.
It isn't radical.
Radical non-dualism is that there's no path towards.
It sounds like an oxymoron to me. Like radical non-dualism. How can non-dualism be radical?
I think it was named. It was named as such by the people who were trying to discriminate between people who. There are certain characters out there that will say, yeah, there's a path to enlightenment. You do these things in this way, and it will happen or not in this lifetime. But whether you're Buddhist or you're whatever, but there is a path, and the radical non-dualism is that there's no path. You're absolutely no control of whether that happens or not. So that they're calling it radical because it is non-dualism, but they're saying it's not something you can work towards.
But the very word itself implies something occurring. Like like that sounds like a Zen koan sort of. You hit it and all of a sudden you get it and go, my God, I'm not enlightened again.
Well, I tell you, watch a few of Tony Parsons' videos. Tony is a Englishman. He's in his, I think it must be his 80s now or 70s. But he says there's nobody here. It's just there's nothing here. It's just happening and appears to be happening, but there's nothing here. And then it's only the me, the mind. There's all stuff happening to it. Anyway, I'm not going to. I could speak from remembering what he's saying, but that's not what we're here for. I'm just aware that I just watched that today, so in a way, it's part of my inner experience now. So where it says behind you, worldview, superheroes, super team saves the world. Scene description.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would have pulled it up to actually give meaning to this show, but it was actually there when I came up and I didn't change it. So, but essentially within the whole idea of the very secret plan is there's different storylines that are occurring. So the story would be super team saves the world, but then the storyline is occurring within a specific worldview that you name. So if it could be, let's say, Christ saves the world might be the storyline, and then the worldview might be Christian. Right. So superheroes is actually a worldview that has a specific sort of set of beliefs, values, whatever that is. And then the story, and this was like within the whole idea of the very secret plan, where the very secret plan was organized by stories that had worldviews, and that the first one out of the gate was the super team saves the world. And so the idea within, the whole secret plan is you get 4 people in a media team, a planetary guardian media team, and then you have to get 5 media teams together to create a superhero team of 20 people. And so that 20-person team would be a model that if you had 7 of those, you'd create a shared knowledge community. So within the whole planetary guardians hierarchy, You go from a 4-person team to a 20-person team to 144 people. And so the goal is to build this new sort of economic model. And that's how the super teams would save the world, is by creating a whole new economic system that within their within the whole idea, there is this methodology of building teams. And so then this card set is, it has, then you have, and I'm not sure if I've ever sent that to you. So then within the card set, you have cards that have, I think I'll just read this one. I'm going to change it. The super team is trained by a group of punk ass kids.
Right.
So then you have 10 minutes on screen and 2 weeks off screen. So you have 2 times. You have the online, the on screen time,
Yeah.
like a movie, but then in reality, how much time it takes. And so I have a whole deck of cards that each one of these is a scene. And then you sort of pull different cards. Like here's the super team escapes the trap and one member sacrificed something important, saving the team. Another one is the villain realizes that a super team may be aware of their plan. The super team creates a wild ass planetary guardians party with Miss Plum. So it sort of brings together reality and fiction, and then it starts to introduce certain members of planetary guardians. And so the idea is that you get a card deck, and then as a team, you might pull one of the scenes, and then you have to create in one of the scenes and put it up. And then so you've got these different media teams that are creating different sort of scenes of the movie, and then you create sort of storylines based upon playing the game. And this is the first time I've actually, I think, not the first, but online explained it, because I always thought that this card set and this idea was a great idea, but it's one of the many that are on a shelf going nowhere and waiting to come out. So that's the context behind this. So like you might go, I don't know if you choose, like you might go storyline, the game of now enters the world. And I don't know if you might, and then you might put worldview, radical non-dualism. And then you create scenes of, well, this didn't happen and that didn't happen. Nothing's happening here again. And but you could bring in characters that this radical non-dualism isn't happening with. Anyway, I mean, I'm sure you come up with something better than that, but it'd be funny to have a radical non-dualism worldview that nothing ever occurred.
Well, it's out there, yeah. I mean, there's only about, I'm not sure how many there are of them. Anyway, I now have a view out my window here of one of the house owners digging up the garden. I think.
Hey, look at this one.
Does he know he's in a card?
I don't think so. And it says the super team is networked into an international network of healers by Gino. So I don't think you're in this set. You should be in this set. But anyway, sorry for interrupting.
That's all right. Yeah, I think that's the whole challenge, isn't it? Of whether it's planetary gardens or anyone's story, of how do you engage people in your story, and I want to do this, I'm offering this, I've created these things, come and join or come and play. I mean, it's especially when there's no, I mean, I'm playing this game now called 3 months storytelling course. That's a course, therefore I'm paying for it, and they're offering these things, and it's if they were doing it for free. I don't think they wouldn't get anyone doing it. So it's how do you monetize what you're doing so that people come and pay for it and play it because it's going to really benefit them or not. I don't know. I know it's same for me. I don't have that clear in my mind regarding Game of Now or what I'm doing, and I'm not attached to it anymore, really. But you're obviously you're still you're doing that. I mean, the images of where you are and with the whole scene behind you on the table, you've manifested that in a place. You've got people sitting around a table, so it's really you've got there. So only by contributing your energy consistent to that, then something's going to happen, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's actually getting a bit excited because we have a space. The Synergizer table is getting redone. We've got some big maps, and Lori and Sylvie are very excited about being the host place. But like anything, it just takes time. I find I started making promo videos for the conscious communication card set yesterday, and that's each step is a massive job, right? Like each
Yeah.
And there's so many different components. Like this is a component which I sort of forgot about, which actually is probably way more interesting to me than the other card set. It's almost like you've got a card set that is here watching the story, and depending upon what lens and you look through, you see something different, and then you've got the actual story occurring, which is the true content. Like it's structure versus content to me that I'm always playing with.
Yeah.
And that the content, and what I love about what you've done or what you do is that again, I might be saying something, but it seems to me you're structureless. Like the Game of Now is a real spontaneous, intuitive, in the moment exploration of life. And that, again, I don't want to say that I know exactly all of how you do it, but it just seems to me that we're on those opposite ends of the spectrum where I have spent so much time on a structure when in fact, I'm not a structured guy. Like I'm not there's an insanity because I sort of got caught into building this thing because of how I saw the world, but I don't, I like spontaneously creating. I don't like adhering to a schedule or a structure. And that seems to be where we're going with this space, where everything's going to be around this structure of scheduling people to sit around a table to have a conversation using the cards. Right. And every time I've had this experience with people, when you use the randomness to turn the cards over to answer a question, it works really well. Like it's just over, I guess, 15 years now, I've never seen it not work. It always works out well. You always have a great conversation. You always have deep listening. You always have people engaged. And it's like business. Business is you repeat a process and you charge money and you repeat the same process. But inherently as an inventor, I hate getting caught in, and I think perhaps you do too, right? Getting caught in a structure where you have to repeat the same thing over and over again to make money.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the whole, money is involved to trade, and we trade with each other, and to trade with each other, we need to have something to exchange, and then that's all we're doing. We're just exchanging stuff, energy, really. But it's all happening as an energy flow coming back and forth, and that's it. I mean, I've not been in England for 13 years, so I've never run the game here. Well, I did run it when I was at the course last time, but I've not had and I probably will at some point. But what I did the last time was I was wearing the jacket that said on the back of it, "The Game of Now, Adventures and Creativity," and I never promoted it. It's only when someone said, "Hey, what is that then?" I said, "Oh, what's the Game of Now? Do you want to play?" And then they instigated. It wasn't me going out saying, "What is that?" So if I'm wearing that jacket all the time, eventually says, "What is that?" And I says, "Oh, it's yeah. Do you want to play?" And then I know that I'm taking people across the fourth wall or whatever you call it in film, but they're living in their reality, and suddenly they meet this guy who says, "Oh, you want to step over here?" Or if you met somebody in the town, they'd say, "Hey, come to this space," and then they come to that space, and suddenly the rules are different.
Mm.
And it can really freak people out because they're so used to living in. Have you heard of Stewie Wilde? He died a while ago, but Stewie Wilde,
Mm.
if you ever Stuart Wilde,
Yeah, I read all his books, loved him. You spent
he's
time with
like,
him, right?
no, I didn't know, but it's
Okay.
the TikTok world, as he calls it, the TikTok people,
Mm.
and how yeah, it's just energy and feeling, and you're putting all this energy and quality and feeling into it, and now you've got a base. You know, you were, I think, in Vancouver is a certain thing, but now where you are, it's a very different thing, and you've got that, and you've got the virtual space, so it just feels a matter of time. And if you can create ways that people can zoom in, like I can, or others, so that you're in the space as well, and saying hi, and
Mm.
someone's sitting there going, well, where are you? I said, well, I'm here. Where are you? Oh, right. Okay. What's going on? Well, I've got this problem. I said, okay. And then you've got sort of spaces where you're solving all sorts of problems and doing things. I mean, the game of now for me, what I realized because I listened to the radical non-dual stuff is that so many people now have an concept of what awakening is.
Mm.
You know, being enlightened. Oh, you're like a Jedi master, or you're like kind of old wise being that just sits there, or you're like the Buddha, or you're like Jesus going around everywhere. That's what an enlightened being is, and you got to do these things together. And it's, you know, and if anyone who's watching this or listening to that knows very well that that is objectifying the experience, and it's not true. So you just project onto the idea of it. So the thing about the game of now, I realized, is that it doesn't have. If you had a computer file that said the game of now, you click on it, there's nothing in it. So you can't connect to it. You're stuck. You disappeared, or you're stuck. Are you still there?
Yeah. Oh, did this screw you up or?
Yeah, it's. I don't know why it's. I don't know why it's. Yeah, I mean, no, no, it's just. I don't. Maybe that's what happened. But I'm going to put off my phone because it's using the internet. Maybe that will be better. I'm just saying that I remember in the past that if you present people with something that they've never heard of, and they want to know what it is. Of course, their mind wants to know what it is. They want to feel settled. They want to know. They want to have a feeling: do I choose this or not? And then when there's nothing there, they can't objectify it. Oh, you mean it's like Eckhart Tolle, power now? I said, well, if you want it to be, but no, it's the game of now. Oh,
Mm.
you mean it's meditation? No,
Mm.
no, meditation is meditation. But what is it then? I said, well, let's find out. And then they get all, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it feels to be more experimental and in the zone of here's a thing, here's a space, we do it, and then people, you know, offer it. If I said no, $1,000 to play, then that kind of cuts out a huge amount of people. But then the ones who really go, oh, this must be amazing, they project into it, and I'll say, you know, what is that worth to you? And then whatever. But again, it's always what you feel you're worth. So it's just a
Mm.
projection of my own energy. Um, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm not thinking of that right now. I'm thinking of the storytelling and as a way of letting go of my old story and coming into a new one.
Well, I mean, at times I sort of like I think of the business side of things because everything I'm working with is a business structure, and the game of now to me, like the way of making a living, right? Like for
Mm-hmm.
you, for me, or the fringers, how do we make a living if we don't really want to participate in the normal way of doing things? And I think that I remember once I was sitting on the beach, I had a table out and I was doing readings, and I, for the first time, negotiated with somebody the value of a possible experience. And normally I would do that. I would just give the personal experience and then they would sort of throw a couple dollars my way or maybe not, depending. And,
Mhm.
I mean, that's, as soon as you go into the business mindset, there is this sort of assessment of value, which sometimes can kill the experience, right? If you just had this big negotiation and now you go into something, now the experience is going to be very changed than spontaneously just creating something. And so I think sometimes when I'd set up a table, let's say by the beach, and I remember this experience with these 4 kids, and we had a great experience. And most of the time, if I never brought up money and I never brought it at exchange, there would be a great experience, but I would never get paid. And it all, and over time, there's a sort of resentment inside, because I found, boy, people are cheap here in Canada. I mean, they have these, and they have these great experiences. They have something they've never experienced in their life, and then they just sort of walk off without even thinking about some sort of, compensation. And I didn't want to kill the experience, and that whole thing with money, I wanted to give it as a gift. And
Mhm.
it was a beautiful experience for me and for them. But, over time, when you don't have money for a coffee or gas or something, you sort of question your own business uh, skills. And, I think you're in the same boat, that you can give people great experiences, but if there isn't some sort of container, like let's say you had a show, The Game of Now, and you did your TikTok thing and you filmed it as it occurred, and all of a sudden you had, let's say, 2 million viewers, because that can
Yeah.
happen. I mean, chances are a lot lower the older you get, but definitely it can happen. So all of a sudden you got a lot of people who know who you are. Because I've seen so many freaking things on TikTok, and most of them, when they're interviewing or doing anything, it's a little pathetic, but they have these huge audiences of young people watching them. And I know that whatever you do, my guess is it would be quite enlightening for people. But it's how do you, how do you, like, I don't know how much you like filming or like being filmed. Like, do you ever do a Game of Now where you have your phone out and you film the experience as it's happening?
No, I mean, BA was doing it. She did it for a while we were traveling, but it was never coordinated or structured. And I just say, this is what's happening. Look at this. But I think that if one is pointing to the thing is that the young people and what people are interested in, and they're nearly all of it is caused by their conditioned mind. And when you start to get into that kind of languaging and that kind of thing, and you're helping them see that all their experiences is due to what's happening inside and the interior, the exterior, there isn't such a that is huge teaching that is accessible via the old ways of Buddhism, and then all the different religions have their own esoteric aspects. But for me, to doing that on camera and doing it on social media, unless someone was organizing me and telling me to do it, I just can't give my time to that anymore. I did it so long for years when the only person who was watching was Jean Marie in New York, uh, and yeah, it's just that nobody was doing that. No one was running around showing things or talking about places in a way you wouldn't see on mainstream media or on television or in a film. It's real. This is no. I'm talking to this guy, and we're
Yeah.
talking about this, and people are having experiences and waking people up and going, "Oh yeah, we could do that. Well, let's do it then." and just this, huh? Well, this is very disruptive. So I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, we're in a similar boat for that reason. I've looked at what trauma do I have around money. What is it about working in the matrix, engaging with people who are completely asleep? And as Stewie Wilde says, find out what they want, then bill them. Just bill them and double your prices and bill them, because they'll pay you for it. Because they will, because they don't know what they want.
Mm.
They want something that they don't know what it is, but they want to feel something. They want to change the feeling. They want someone to solve their problems, and they don't want to take responsibility. They want to do any work, and actually, there's nothing much they can do. So people like you and I, and the radical non-dualist others, and the Junos of the world, whatever happened to us, and we are, I don't know, more awake, or just our attention is very different than most people who are. I think more and more people are waking up, and it's a bit frightening for people. And the pandemic created a lot of that, and then that will happen again, more and more and more, and then suddenly there's a sense of what are we doing, and that is going to get very strong.
Mm.
And then it will be, yeah, I'm fascinated by because Chris, my mentor, he said that ultimately everybody will end up in the same place. That's what the kind of energetics, the sort of push of the earth, and earth being conscious, will just force humanity into one area. Maybe that's in 1,000 years, but it will just all end up in one area, and everything else will just die off. So just because the way we are, we're social, we have to interact and share and to connect. So the humanity will go towards that one area, or areas, you know.
Huh.
So my friend who's very psychic is very much about, you know, you may have been drawn, because if you take the view that we're being played, you've been brought to that area. If one allows that, I feel I've been drawn back here again. My friend is drawn over there to stay there, and these next 10 years we're going to get into one of the most amazing transformations of humanity, probably, but I've never experienced in my life. You haven't. No one alive today has any idea. Maybe some can remember the war or have been involved in some very intense things, but I think we're actually doing the stuff. We have the stuff that they'll be doing when it's all gone, because we've already built it and created it for that. So it doesn't fit the modern world's economic systems and stuff. But when people say, oh, we're bored, there's no internet now, we go, what we could do for 17 months? Well, here's some stuff I created, let's do that. And suddenly you're the focus. And oh, Gamer Now, you heard of that? What is it? I said, yeah, exactly. Let's meet and talk about it, and let's because there's nothing to watch, there's nothing to do. People are going mad. There's one guy who's got a generator or whatever, or there's some group who've got the solar, and then people watching a film like once every 3 weeks. But ultimately, I can't see, and I don't know how quickly that's going to happen. But I'm thinking that those who are able to do conversation, have imagination, can do basic stuff, cooking, gathering, facilitating groups, and that's going to return.
You know, I had I don't know if it was a dream a long time ago, but it was sort of like a knowing that by the time my work comes to the world, I'm going to be very old, and it will, and the people around will see no value in it. And this is sort of opposite a bit of what you're saying, but it's kind of like again, we'll be playing with sticks and stones rather than designing value systems. Like the children or the people will be so, I don't know, as you know, maybe transformed. I mean, this week I had this big aha in terms of how they're going to bring in the digital ID. And, you know, I didn't get it. I, you know, of course, watched a video on it, but it was just looking at artificial intelligence, and that at some point, and it's probably now, that we won't be able to distinguish humans from artificial intelligence, either by face or by speaking, or like they've already got the technology in place to sort of replace humans in a digital form to sort of speak. And so you might not, like I might be an AI version of me, and you can't tell the difference between me and the AI version. And so because of that, everyone's going to call out for digital ID to make sure that you're talking to me or I'm talking to you. And at that, I don't know if you know much about that Ohio spill that occurred.
No.
In the States, there was this rail car disaster where a train of, I think, over 150 cars, a lot of them were hydrogen chloride, and it just spilled everywhere, and the whole town is, you know, in this massive mess. And they actually made a movie on Netflix about it 2 years ago in the same town, using the same extras, about a spill that occurred, which is, again, sort of strange.
Yeah.
And then they rolled out these digital IDs, so you could put it on you and find out, if you're dying or not, I guess. But it's like the plan is constantly unfolding in terms of this complete computerized control mechanism of us. And my the work that I've been doing actually is an AI system. It's the root in software form. It could become AI very easily. And I see the human beings being the nodes. Like in fact, like I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to figure out at the community level how to use AI to support the community. And so the whole idea of the shared knowledge communities, or the whole idea of, it's again, like you and I, maybe we're not too good at business, but we're good at creating things. But if we hooked up with some people who are good at business within a larger community that was actually supportive rather than just trying to steal our stuff, that we would do quite well. But it's going to happen because of teams, and it's going to happen because we're involved with other people. And that the idea that people are going to have to start to come together in larger architectures to make a living, I see it happening right now, because the AI systems of the government or the larger corporations are going to be so pervasive. Like, the takeover is occurring, and the only way to stop it is going to be other human beings creating smarter, more intelligent systems.
Well, as Daniel Schmachtenberger said, that you don't want a decentralized AI. You actually don't want it, because it's uncontrollable and it's messy. There's reasons why central AI or Google doing it, and others, it's going to be so far superior to what local communities can do. It depends what we're talking about. AI, of course. If we're talking about, please tell us, given the number of people here and the number of space and land, what should we be planting, when and where, and what kind of food can we grow, and things like that. Now, I'm projecting that kind of scenario, but everything for me is rooted in post-fossil fuel energy. Either we're being lied to and there's plenty of oil for another 100 years. Okay, it will destroy the planet, but we'll still have it to maintain this structure. Or these other technical, but the people I'm reading say all of it's nonsense. It's all lies. This is absolutely, even those who are saying we're going to, yeah, what's going to power it all? What's going to power all these servers, all these things? That none of it, there isn't any. And the idea that there's a cohesive system organizing it isn't true either. So it's like, I don't know, I can't feel intuitively where the energy is going to come from to power a global digital ID system. Not only to power it, but to actually, you've then got to back up that with policing and state control, and I just don't see where the energy is coming from, because the energy it's got to come from somewhere. And okay, we can harness space or whatever, or which is what one guy, a young guy in the airport, told me. He said, "Oh, we'll just harness space energy," like as flippantly at 20-year-old. That's what he assumes is going to happen, and then maybe that's what will happen, but I don't know. So I'm, a bit like I think a bit like you. That's what I'm hearing is I feel I'm prepared for a future that's coming, and this is all just sort of practice and training. The current, when I walk into any, like a coffee shop or I just watch what's going on and go, God, this is a dream. This is all very strange. Why people are doing this? Basically, there's nothing else to do, and coffee shops are full because it's a drug. It's a great. I mean, I'm going to have another one now. It's a really nice buzz. Dopamine. If you can provide the dopamine, we're fine. Yeah. I'm still here. I can hear you. I'm just putting
Well, I mean, what's interesting is that most of my work has all been done in a coffee shop. And since the COVID, I stopped going. And now being in Yorkton, there actually aren't really any coffee shops here. I mean, there's a Tim Hortons kind of thing. and there's another coffee shop that plays horrible music that it's difficult to be around. But my whole life has existed in coffee shops because it was the only place to hang out around people that was somewhat, enjoyable. So I feel that everything I built came from a coffee shop. All the designs and all the work that I've done. And I think that I play with the idea called the dream space, which was more of a coffee shop, but then people would create together. People would hang out there and have a real place to hang out and create. And that's what I feel is one of the missing pieces of this whole world we're in. And I think that place was it Belgium? Brussels? Weren't you somewhere where you had a friend who had a sort of a spot that was attempting to be a community meeting spot?
Well, he had it. That space that he had was financially supported by the Methodist Church.
Oh,
because he was supporting creativity and arts and mental health for the community. So he, as the minister, was holding meditations in there, and he was alternative, and
I didn't know.
Yeah, it was very popular. So that's the thing is the who funds this kind of thing. I mean, right now, I just see where I am living now is that the spaces is people just always gather in coffee shops or in bookstores, but they only gather in the bookstore because there's coffee being sold. So people want to hang out together, they want to be together, and they want to chat or play chess. That's what I was doing on Friday, is playing in the chess club.
Mm.
And it's like we were so conditioned not to be comfortable with strangers, inverted commas, that we just don't feel. And I understand why I wouldn't want to be around people who I don't know very much. So we're just conditioned to be either living by ourselves or with a few folk, and that's normalized. Whereas what's coming, I think, is that we're going to have to meet each other and talk and connect and say, well, how do we do that? So well, here I've got all this stuff, I can help.
So it sounds like you're.
Are Laurie? Is it Laurie Renton? Is it Laurie?
Yeah.
Yeah. So are they business people? Are they got connections within the community?
Yeah, Laurie used to have a financial services company, and she was helping people with their money, but more from an investing point of view. And the whole time, I think, like, she's very much wanting to assist people to sort of reach their dreams. Like, it's essentially they have a self-development sort of side of things, and they've got a very nice space, and they've got a good reputation, and they've got big visions. But Saskatchewan is kind of like, maybe, I don't know, I think it's about 20 or 30 years behind the rest of Canada. It's very farm focused, it's very conservative, it's very Christian, and it is changing. But I think of all the provinces, it's probably, just, again, it's a little behind the times, which is actually quite nice, because it's a lot more, I think, of a simple existence. Like if you go to Vancouver, Toronto, or any of the big cities in Canada, it's quite different. It's a very different atmosphere. And at the same time, if they took what they had the Visionary Hub and put it downtown Calgary or Vancouver or some other place, I think it would take off like this. But because it's in Yorkton, which has about 10,000 people, surrounding area maybe 100 to 150,000 people, so it's got a broad rural area, but a very small it's a small city. And I haven't, of all the places that I've ever been, usually I go to the coffee shop, and usually I run into people, and usually that's where I meet the friends, and I start to network and sort of connect into that place. But I haven't done that here. But it's also because I'm working so diligently on getting the marketing materials and the websites and all the back end logistical stuff to get this work to go into the world. And they're an example of, let's say, a provincial distributor. Like, I'm looking at them being the distributors for the New Paradigm Toolkit in Saskatchewan. And so I have to, build all the material. I'm still, behind in creating the manual for the cards, but I'm seeing that I think the online manual is going to be very different than a normal manual. I think it's going to be by missions and doing things step at a time, because I just see that with this work, it's so large that it has to be done experientially, step by step. And so I started recently working on a website, as I said, using Wix and seeing how at the provincial level, it's a very different type of design than at the community level or at the individual level, right? So because the idea is scaled almost from the planet to the individual, there are all these different levels that are taking into account different sort of models. And so when I'm building this website, it's like this, holy shit. I mean, I've got an architecture for website, and I've been playing at different levels of software architecture, but the website is like the front door into the dream space. I mean, the website is basically the entry into everything else. And depending upon how you organize
you're sticking now a lot, Elijah. So
Oh, am I?
I've got an idea. Can you stop the recording now, and I'll go
Okay.
back to. I'm gonna.
So were you missing a lot of what I was saying?
No, I got all of it, but your face was stuck.
Okay. Because I'm hoping at some point, and it depends, maybe, I don't know. I mean, that sounds a bit ridiculous, but I was hoping maybe that once I get the website done, then it's very easy to duplicate the website. And so then you can sort of set it up for any area in the world, to basically create curriculums. I think that what's missing, there's so many independent knowledge workers and so many people that have pieces of the puzzle, but there isn't a larger design curriculum where these pieces fit. And so that's, again, one of the things I've been working on, to look at how to get larger numbers of people to bring together what they've learned to then be part of these larger processes that large amounts of people go through. And I think, like in Saskatchewan, there's a huge need for a different type of education for the young people, and different type of education for people come out of jail, different type of education that's needed for the people who are addicted. Like, there's tons of addiction problems, probably throughout Canada, probably throughout the world, but definitely I don't know if fentanyl has hit England or Spain in the way that it hit here, but
yeah,
it's horrendous. Like it's like crack, like, whatever, worse than crack. But I think I heard in Duncan that you mix fentanyl with crack, with heroin, and so, they're just putting it all together, and it's just basically turning these people into zombies. Like, you just see them in downtown Vancouver, and they're just sitting there in this, just as like,
yep.
all the movies have come true. We just have a bunch of fucking zombies that are walking around with no purpose, no meaning, and their life is just hell.
Yeah.
I know, it's
Yeah.
fascinating to watch in our lifetime, eh?
Yeah, it's I forget where I watched it, or like, as hunter-gatherers, we had the physical experience of taste and variations of taste and regular dopamine hits. And I'm aware that, and that's the prevalence of coffee now everywhere. It's just a great hit. It's people getting their drugs as we know. And the thing is, it's been talked about so much, I even get bored of hearing myself think about it. But basically, that whole, those who will not play that game are and who will end up, hopefully not a small percentage, but that's where some are going, and the kind of, there's enough people who are happy to make money and don't give a shit about other human beings to be able to sell it to them. So, but that I just think, I really do. I mean, Obi-Wan Kenobi's mentor, was it Qui-Gon? I can't remember his name. The guy that Liam Neeson played.
Hmm.
Your focus creates your reality. I just think that's going to be such an important line to remember, because if you want to focus on trauma, and trauma healing, your life is all talking about trauma all day long, and there's no end to it. There's no end to how traumatized people are, to varying degrees, and there's absolutely no end to misery and complaining, and it's their fault, and it's whatever, it's the government. Fine, you'll end up, that's a spiral down. So it's that, creating these spaces where the energy feels really, oh, this is expansive, I feel great. It's expansive, and it's also the focus. And yeah, new educational hubs that people can come into and just connect and say, okay, we're in that, as you say, very simple. We're in a movement from one paradigm which is collapsing to a new one. That's level one. Come in. What does that mean? Discuss it. Where's your output of that? And then you come and meet, other people. But I do think when you can get a space really financially viable for you, and other people, because if you've got colleagues and it's easier, then it can be replicated.
Yeah.
I do think there's a tipping point where it becomes, there's people who say, the way the schools are doing, this is not working anymore. That all of that doesn't work. We need new things, and then you're building towards that, so that it's there. I mean, as you said earlier, my sense is I want to facilitate the unknown, and I think I probably missed the boat with adding a technical app to that. I think that I'm someone who can take a God's eye view and say, well, okay, if we had that in place, make that happen. And then someone says, yeah, Graham, to do that, you'd need the entire money supply of the BBC or that. It's just not going to happen. So I think now people more than ever are motivated by money. And what's in this for me? Can I earn money doing this? Oh, I can money doing it. Yoga teacher, life coach, whatever you name it. I can earn some money from it. I'll do a training in it to get money. So there's way more people trained up to do stuff than there are people who need it. At the same time, if you do something really well and you're clear and you're positive, then people will find you. I think they can only find you if you're putting this out. People will respond to that energy. They can only do so because the me is always seeking something. It's seeking a better situation than it's in right now. So the point I'm trying to make here is that I think we're both preparing for what might be quite soon, but the next few years, when suddenly there'll be more interest in, oh, where have you been? Well, we've been here all the time.
Yeah.
But you just didn't know that because you weren't ready to actually have a look for something alternatives. So these structures collapsing, and somebody who's 70, 80 just leaves all their money to. I mean, that's the kind of thing that happens. That's how Rudolf Steiner began. It was the Waldorf, very rich Waldorf family that said, design us a new education system. So Waldorf Astoria, the huge.
Okay.
It was them in the early 1900s. They heard him speak and says, "We'd like you to design a new." So he did. He went away and designed it, and so that's if you want to have if you research that a bit, the Waldorf schools were basically Steiner's response to being invited to design a new system.
I didn't know that part. I just And that, that, I mean, makes sense to me. I mean, I've had patrons in the past to a little degree. And I know, I think I told you I had this 5,000 square foot building in downtown Victoria for almost a year that would have
Yeah.
cost 10,000 a month, that he gave it to me because of the strength of my ideas and our connection. And it was, one of the most interesting times of my life, because it was the first time I had a building. It's the first time I got to do what I wanted to do and set it up so nobody had to pay anything and you could do anything you wanted. But I didn't really say that out loud to everybody, but that's essentially my own philosophy, and beautiful, amazing things happened. But again, his management team would come in basically every month and kick us out without his knowing, and sort of ruin everything, kill the vibe, because we were the antithesis towards what they were doing. I mean, he owned 50 buildings and he was, he had to make X amount of money from each building, and his management team was there to help him do this. But he was a born again Christian, and he had a very strong experience, and someone had spent 2 years with him every week, hanging out with him to get through to him. And then he had this experience, he had an awakening experience where Jesus appeared in a room, and he knew that he was going to hell if he didn't. Like, he actually had, a physical sight vision in front of him. And so, and he changed his ways like that. He changed. He went from always drinking alcohol, always going after the women, always, being a kind of a bit of a bastard, it sounds, into somebody who is completely dedicated to the Christian faith. And he saw me as funny thing is, he saw me maybe not as a similar person, but he then did that to me. We'd go out once or twice a week and have dinner, and we would talk about God, and we would talk about spiritual matters. He would talk, I'd basically listen. But he was very charismatic. He was very interesting, and he was very, I really enjoyed it. And just like I enjoy a talks, like if you're with someone who's delving into the things that interest you in a spiritual way, that to me is one of the best conversations in life. And so he, within 5 minutes, basically gave me this building. And, I could see that happening in just like if you have something real, if you have something of true value, at some point, I believe that it will get its chance. And to me, I didn't think it would take this long, but then I see that all the little pieces which I'm missing, which are other people would have done years ago, which I still haven't done yet, like a website that's actually functioning. I lost almost 20 websites in Weebly. I sort of like Square took it over, and all of a sudden, but by switching to Wix, it gave me a whole new way of doing website, because Wix is different from Weebly, and they have some, and it's fascinating to sort of get a new tech and then just start playing with it to look at how you can use it to bring your stuff into the world. And I think, again, with what you have, basically all you need is a website and a business card, and that would completely change. You could make a living doing exactly what you're doing, because people would come to you. As soon as people come to you to say, we want you to do this, then you can charge them. But if you're going to them, it's different. You need a reputation.
It requires, if you've got, there's a whole range of things. And if you've got a website and then you've got videos where you explain who you are, you basically are giving free resources to say, this is who I am. You can connect with me, you can feel me, and I've got this thing, which is down here, and you pay for it.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
Yeah.
Know? And it's like there's something in me about, saying, my particular thing is the game of now, and I train people in it. And so people say, well, what is it? And what am I paying for? And I'll say, well, we have first have a conversation to see if you're ready or not. And then then there's part of me that feels the money game is always going to be for me, because But there's a few people who've said, "No, Graham, you realize you understand the whole thing." And so for me to play this game of Moneygate, it's a game, and I feel rather, I just feel it's just an ego game. It's just a thing. You want to pay me money so that you can have an experience you've not had before. Fine, that's what I'm charging because I've got to pay my bills, and that's what they are now, and that's what I think I'm worth. And you will have an experience as to, will this solve your problems? This maybe, maybe not. Maybe you have more problems. Oh, but I'm not going to pay for that. This is, well, you're trying to that's people's fundamental issue, is that people want, they don't know what they want to have things solved, but it can't be solved in my view. But you can give the feeling, you can give people the impression that they're doing a lot of work, paying for it, and that they're going to actually get better, or they're going to solve it, or you're going to. So all I can say is, I'll give you an original experience you've never had before, and you may discover things about yourself that you may or may not like. But if that's of value to you, I'm here, and I could also listen to you for 4 hours at a level and a depth that you will not hear or experience very often. And I charge for that because it's my time. Now, to build all that, as you say, you know how much it takes. It's just whether I want to do it or not. There's part of me that just wants to get a 9 to 5 job, because I've not had one for 13 years, and just let my mind rest, just go through that. I'm here and I'm in England. I'll study. I'll slowly build my own websites at night, just building it gentle, rather than I'm constantly spending my savings every single day. So yeah.
Well, I think that's the storytelling. I think that, I don't know, I just get the sense that something is going to happen, that when you come out, you're going to have your direction. Because I think fundamentally that I think all of us this year or next are going to come into our ability to teach. And I think that fundamentally, no matter what, that you're a teacher, and that younger people, or you're older, but just in general, that being around a teacher, just like you were around your mentor, right? Like it's life-changing no matter what. Like something is going to happen. You don't know how or what or where, but if you hang out with you, it's going to change. And so, and you have to have, I guess, a desire to do so, because to really teach someone means, you take on their shadow, you take on so much more than just going to a classroom, like in the traditional sense. And the person may end up hating you, or there's a good chance that they'll end up having some big ego conflict, and that's it, right? Like,
yeah,
it's a power struggle from day one in reality. And when I think,
well, as soon as money's involved, exactly. You say, yeah, go on. Sorry.
well, and again, I think so much has to do with like reputation, where once a teacher's got a certain reputation, then everything changes, because then the people are coming to you with maybe more humility, or more they come to the name, and that name transforms how people come to you. Like if you're Genghis Khan, or if you're Steiner, or if if you're all of a sudden really well known, you're just not the same. Like the thing about us, or anyone like us, is obscurity creates a sort of methodology that if someone doesn't know you, then the respect, the trust, that all these things that the name gives you isn't there. And it's like they're waiting for you to prove yourself. And to me, when you reach the point of being a true teacher, you don't have to prove yourself to anybody. I mean, they're either gonna
Yeah, and ultimately the universe will look after you, because when you get to that point that I don't need anything really, I don't need students. If I want students, there's something in me that still needs to feed that. And that's fine. I mean, for me, it was always with Chris. It was always, do what you want. If you enjoy, do it. Charge money for it, but it's a thing. That's it. There's no formula. This is a theory. this is what I do. I love doing it. I love maps. I love these things. Going through this, I've seen the effects of it. I love doing it. That's why I'm doing it. Will it save the world? Maybe, maybe not. I just do that because I like all saying these things. It's attractive. It's fun. We've got to aim big. So it's like, for me, it's when there are people who are so good at the business and the marketing,
Mm.
because they know it somehow. They intuitively know how to tap people's buttons and get them afraid, tell them that you've got the answer, say it's a lot of work and it costs a lot of money. You've got that formula. People feel the lack. They think you've got the answer. They do it. They give so many testimonials because that's how it works. Because people really, but they don't give the testimonials to people who hated it and said this is bullshit and never happens. So they get the like 20 people who really think it's
Yeah.
amazing, but there's 2,000 who would say, "Hang on a minute." So it's just a story, and that's the beauty of it. And it's the story we buy into.
Mm.
We need that story that somebody else knows what they're doing, and somebody else knows how to do it and solve things. Where yeah. Anyway, I'm ranting a bit, but I do think that it's a case of, this is where the Stewie Wild stuff comes in. If you're watching this, who's Stewie? Well, just read up about him. But he's not saying anything different from loads of people. He loved to write books. He wrote 10 books. He's a character, a charmer. He was who he was, and it's all about the feeling. If you feel, I love doing this, it's enjoyable, and put a lot of energy into it, then people will come to it.
Do you find you have to, are you holding any resentment about how people treat you? Is that a thing?
Maybe less now than before. Yeah, maybe less now than before. When I was hanging out with Chris, there was a lot of, it was just a bitterness fest. Being bitter about the world, being bitter about the way things are, being bitter about why no one listened, being bitter about the fact that everyone was just living. I remember Chris saying, I was on the beach, I did some research, just listening in to people. They just want money and women. That's it. All the men just want more money and a girlfriend, and the women want a better husband or a better boyfriend, and they want some nice stuff. That's basically it. That's what people want, right? And he says, I couldn't give a fuck about that. So that was always the thing. It's like I'm interested in the evolution of humanity. Of it. Can we create a different society? How do we look at that? And the fact is that very, 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 very small numbers of people give a shit. So you find those who like to do that, and then you do what you want. I mean, you put so much more effort into your work and you Parantoka and Plant Your Gardens than I put into Game of Now. I've in the past I put a lot more in, but now, and maybe it will after storytelling, I'll come up with. I've got the energy now to write a book or build lots of pages, and here's some videos, and here's my voice recorded, and you can do X, Y, Z, and here's some stuff you can buy, and you can listen to me telling you how to gamify even just going to the toilet. Right, it can be an amazing experience. So it's like, but there's a larger part of me that is I can't be bothered. That it's like all I got to do is, as my friend Anadine said, as long as you say on your deathbed that your final words are, "What is the game of now?" As long as that's your final breath, and somebody hears you saying, "What is the game of now?" and you point to a bit of paper, and that's all there is. That's all that matters, because then it will carry on, or not. It might just die. But if that's it, you've done your job. I guess what I'm saying is I had and I'll admit, the last bit was I on a walk last week. Someone said to me, "What is enough?" If you're saying you want the world to change in certain ways, you'd love to see a much more conscious, and it's likely you won't see it. That's a lot of pressure on you to You know, so what is enough for you to see a change in people that stops you driving yourself into burnout?
Oh, fuck, that's a good question. I mean, I find you reach a point where if you're an inventor, I think, where you just want to get the fucking thing out there, and like the attitude I have is not the right one in terms, because I think when I was just starting out, I had a lot of spit and vinegar, a lot of arrogance, but not much substance in terms of the work. And now I think I have a little substance in the work, but the attitude of I don't give a fuck is my way of dealing with my resentments, because I have
Hmm.
felt bitterness over how I felt treated, and I have felt a lot of most of the reasons why I think my work isn't into the world is because, like you, there's a side of me that's just been so fucking pissed. And I'm not saying that you were fucking pissed, but
Yeah.
I just think that anyone who wants to change the world at some point is fucking pissed about the way it is. And now, there's this seeing this, whether impending doom, but it just seems like, okay, I see the end game coming. I see what they're doing. I don't see anything that's going to stop it. And then I hear what you're saying in terms of, well, if there's a solar flare and there's an EMP and basically everything just stops, and now we're in a totally different world, because that's, I think, one of the possible timelines. I mean, why do they have all these underground bases? Why are they stocking up on food? There's a lot of things that are going on that don't make sense unless the elites know that there's some cataclysm coming that is going to fundamentally change everything. And I don't know if I sent you that my 9 timeline map.
Don't think so.
Um, but basically it's 9 timelines, 3 that are positive, 3 that are negative, 3 that are neutral. And the idea is that people are on a certain timeline. Now you can be consciously on a timeline, or you can be involved in someone else's timeline. And let's say the negative forces want all of us within a certain timeline where they futurize this very dystopian government control. Every movie coming out of Hollywood is basically about the government in complete control, and the lone hero is in some sort of battle with it, but they might win a little battle, but the war has already been won, and the government institutions run everything, and it's a horrible place to live. And that's, to me, a certain timeline. Now, if I look out the window in Saskatchewan and look at what there's nothing there that even comes close to that timeline. It's just a bunch of people walking around on a sidewalk, and it's sunny out, and it doesn't have any reality. And that's, the gap between the movies and reality is so massive. And yet we, or I, get so caught up in this media portrayal of what's occurring. And that's why, like, this thing in Ohio, which is so weird to me, where they made a movie 2 years ago about what occurred. It occurred, and it's one of the largest environmental disasters maybe in United States history. It's very horrible. Like the hydrogen chloride went into the water stream that sort of is in a watershed of 20 million people, and all over the United States there's tons of these explosions happening. Like, there's a lot of derailments, like 3 happened in 1 week. They're all owned by BlackRock. Like, the story is so bad. And the EPA, the government support systems aren't arriving. And in TikTok, you're getting all this information from the people there and people that are covering it. And it looks like the United States is being attacked fundamentally by somebody. Like, I saw one TikTok where Marines at some electrical plant killed FBI agents that were trying to blow up the plant. Like they've basically proven, right, that all of the intelligence agencies conspired to hide Hunter laptops, the laptop pre-election. Like, the entire intelligence infrastructure was behind it, and with Biden in alignment with it. And it's proven, it's out there. Like, the Twitter files, right, are just exposing all this stuff. So I mean, there's just so much evidence around the complete criminality. I mean, I know it's always been there, but it's just so bad right now. And he's still in power. He's still, like, they're sending no support to this place, but they're sending like $100 billion to Ukraine. You know, the insanity of money, or the insanity of how they use their money. And I really believe it's creating a psychosis that's much deeper than everyone's admitting. That's like there's a insanity.
Well, I
like,
think, yeah,
insanity's reigning.
let me just hang on a second. My AirPods are, and I put you on speaker. Hang on, where are we? How does that work? That's how it works. Speak. Yeah, I've got my son in a bit, so I've got to.
Okay.
I mean,
so we're coming to the end.
yeah, let's give it 5 minutes.
Okay.
I guess it's confirmation bias. I just keep going back to Alan Moore, the guy who said that there's the forces that are in action on this planet are way beyond any group of people. Whatever the intelligence agencies are doing in any country, whatever environmental activists are doing, whatever any group, World Economic Forum, governments, anything, it's nothing compared with the planet Earth, Gaia, as the natural consciousness here, and then galactic unit. I mean, there's so much more going on, I feel, and it presents itself in these ways, and we find the stories that we relate to, or it's like because I don't connect to any of what you're talking about. I don't look at it. I don't think about it. None of that is in my head. But we're talking, and but you somehow you need to do it. It works for you. It whether it creates anger or a determination or an energy, that's what it creates. For me, on my journey, I think it's just coming to terms with it. I think accepting, for me, is accepting life as it is. And I've tried for 50 years to do many, many, many things, and none of them have, inverted commas, worked in terms of what I wanted to happen. And so it's just accepting and letting. I mean, there's no one to let go. It's just a feeling of moving attention towards, and that movement of attention is just because I'm speaking to people like yourself or reading books that I'm interested in. There's something deeper that just wants to feel that sense of acceptance. And I will respond as I will respond. Because if I find when I get into thinking about the future, because I've got a good imagination, I start to feel terrible because of my son and because of what he's going to go through and what it's like, then I can't function and I don't want to get out of bed. So it's that balance of seeing reality, knowing the way there's many, many things I could give attention to, and how can I create in this reality. Because even reading that Stewie Wild book was written in 1989. That was way before. I think it was after that crash in 1989. But that's 33 years ago, and he was predicting things were going to collapse in the few years to come. And I've got a friend who says, I hear everything you're saying, Graham, and I'm a journalist, and I've been tracking financial journalism for 30 years, and it's been said within this it's going to crash, and we've been saying that since 1950 something.
Right.
So he refuses to believe. He says, there's always someone going to say it's going to crash next week, right? But it doesn't. And in fact, weirdly, the worse it gets, people make more money. So there's people going to make more money, and then there's this. So it's really, I have no conclusion. I've enjoyed our chat as always, and Um, yeah, I'm now going into a week of being more structured in terms of getting up in the morning, because I've got to get up every day at 7 for 3 months. So I've got to practice that routine, which I really don't like, getting up, being told to get up by an alarm. Fuck that. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. The
gonna
structure
have to.
coming in.
The structure's coming in. The structure's okay. Up at then, you've got to have your breakfast. You've got to get out the door by then. You've got to be there by then. You've got to sit in a room
Yeah.
until then.
Yeah. It
And
might
you're
drive
paid
you
for this.
crazy, eh?
And you're paying for this experience. There'll be parts of me going, just walk out the door. You do whatever you want. So yeah.
I'm excited for you. I think that I'd love to be there. I'd love to go through that experience, even though, like you, I'm so used to my own time that it would I'd be driven crazy. But I don't know. I think that you're going to walk out of there with a sort of like the clarity of how you want to spend the rest of your life in a way that maybe you haven't. I don't know. Or
Yeah,
or I
I
hope that for
fully
you. I
agree.
don't.
Yeah, it feels like I'm doing this because 3 months is a nice time to create new habits, to just let go of the old skin and say, okay, it's also through spring and coming into my 50th birthday and all these things, and it's story, and it's standing there and saying, okay, people looking at me going, okay, what are you going to tell us? I'm saying, here I am. This is what yeah, and where that leads to.
Well, and
Thank you.
I
Well,
do.
let's see how it goes during the course. You know, if we have a chat at some point midway, or I don't know, I want to be disconnected from the entire world.
Right.
And folk, I don't know.
Well, I'm just saying to you, like I've said before, if you want to do weekly, like whenever you want to check in, and I'll make my time available. And then if you don't check in, that's fine. I won't hold you to anything, but I think it could be a very fascinating set of sort of stories as you go through this, to sort of check in once in a while and just kind of, because I'll be going, I think, through my own transformations happening as I'm getting closer and closer to coming to the world with my own work. So, both of us are on a bit of a, I wouldn't call it precipice, but I just think this year is going to, for our whole species is a massive, AI is coming into the world, has come into the world, and it is like electricity. It is going to it's going to change everything. And so how that occurs, who knows?
Yep.
But it's fascinating to me. So great to see you.
And you.
Have
a lovely sacred Sunday.
Yep. Much love to your son, and we'll see you when we see you.
Cheers, Elijah. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, brother.